Sorry, I don't want to get married.
Terrific. That makes two of them.
Most people know it as the one with the black Trans Am, the country music, and Jackie Gleason calling people names through a police radio. But Smokey and the Bandit is packed with layers, behind-the-scenes decisions, casting choices, real-world history, and on-screen details that most viewers flew right past. Here are 25 small details you missed in Smokey and the Bandit, 1977.
We ain't going to 21, we're going to 19.
21 is 19?
21, that's right. If I say go to channel 6, forget it. We go to 3.
Detail 25. The beer smuggling was based on a real crime. The premise of the film isn't entirely fictional. In the 1970s, Coors beer was not sold east of the Mississippi River. The Adolph Coors Company, a family-owned brewery in Golden, Colorado, had no intention of expanding distribution that far. The beer was unpasteurized, contained no preservatives, and required refrigerated trucks for transport. Moving it across state lines without proper certification was a genuine legal violation. A man named Frederick Amon was actually convicted in federal court for transporting Coors from Dallas, Texas to Charlotte, North Carolina, where he sold it for as much as $1 per can. The Coors mystique east of the Mississippi was entirely real. It was the beer people had heard about but couldn't get, which made it both desirable and worth risking something to obtain. Special air deliveries had even been arranged for President Dwight Eisenhower at the White House. The film's premise was not exaggerated. People were genuinely doing what the Bandit does, and some of them were getting caught for it. The 400 cases in the film represented a real quantity that real people moved in real trucks, and the 28-hour timeline, Texarkana to Atlanta and back, was the kind of specific operational detail that came from people who had thought carefully about whether a run like that was actually possible. It was. The legal landscape around Coors distribution remained in place until the company began pasteurizing its beer and expanding nationally in the early 1980s.
Only 900 miles there, 900 miles back.
Well, for your information, that ain't never been done, not no real.
Detail 24. The idea came to Hal Needham in a hotel room. Director Hal Needham didn't conceive the story in a studio meeting. He was in Georgia in 1976, working as Burt Reynolds' stunt double on the film Gator, when a driver on the set brought cases of Coors beer from California. Sitting in his hotel room with the contraband beer, Needham started thinking about the logistics, what it would take to make that run from Texas to Georgia fast, and what would happen if law enforcement were on your tail the whole way. That hotel room thought experiment became the film. The connection between the concept and its director's actual lived experience in the South around exactly the culture the film depicts is part of why Smokey and the Bandit feels grounded in a way that outside-looking-in productions about Southern life often don't.
You got the Bandit, come on back.
My handle's Silver-Tongued Devil, and I'm here to tell you your fellow C-Beers are mighty proud of you out there. Come on.
Detail 23. This was Hal Needham's first film as director. Hal Needham had spent his entire professional life as a stuntman, one of the most accomplished in the industry, having worked on hundreds of films and television productions. He had never directed a theatrical feature before Smokey and the Bandit. Burt Reynolds, his longtime friend and roommate, handed him the opportunity. Universal Pictures was considerably less confident, viewing the project as a lowbrow regional comedy with limited commercial potential outside the South. They sent a representative to Atlanta midway through production to cut the budget. Needham finished the film anyway and delivered the second highest grossing movie of 1977. Detail 22. The budget was cut by $1 million mid-production. The original budget was $5.3 million. A Universal executive arrived on location during shooting, and informed Needham that the studio was reducing the budget by $1 million, down to $4.3 million. Reynolds was already contractually receiving $1 million for his performance. That left $3.3 million to make the entire picture. All the stunts, all the car work, all the locations, all the crew. The production adapted in practical ways. Locations were reused for different scenes. Planned sequences were shortened or eliminated. Some scenes that might have had more elaborate setups were shot more simply. None of the financial constraint is visible in the finished film. The energy is entirely undamaged. But knowing that everything beyond Reynolds' salary was made for $3.3 million makes the final product considerably more impressive. The $127 million that the film ultimately earned represents a return on investment of roughly 30 times the production budget, one of the better ratios in studio film history. The studio that cut the budget and expected modest regional returns collected the revenue without having provided the faith that produced it.
He's a metal.
Detail 21. Reynolds and Needham were roommates for years. The director-star relationship was not a professional arrangement between people who had worked together once. Reynolds and Needham had lived together as roommates for an extended period during Needham's years as Reynolds' stunt double. When Needham wanted to direct, Reynolds made it possible. Reynolds later said in a film comment interview that giving Needham his first directorial opportunity was one of the best decisions he ever made. The trust between them on set came from a genuine and tested friendship that created the conditions for loose, improvisational filmmaking.
Got a little mess here. Let me help you out here. Get that off of there. That's away from an officer.
Much obliged.
Detail 20. Reynolds turned down Star Wars to make this film. Reynolds had been offered the role of Han Solo in George Lucas's Star Wars before the film went into production. He turned it down. He was also offered the role of Superman, which was being developed at the same time, and turned that down too. He chose Smokey and the Bandit instead, a $4.3 million chase comedy being directed by a first-time filmmaker with no studio confidence behind it. Star Wars became the highest-grossing film in history at that point, and the most culturally transformative film of the decade. Smokey and the Bandit became the second highest-grossing film of 1977. Reynolds made both the wrong call and the right call simultaneously, depending entirely on what you were measuring. It's worth sitting with the alternative history for a moment. Harrison Ford had been doing carpentry work and was building cabinets at Francis Ford Coppola's office when he was cast as Han Solo. Ford went on to have one of the defining film careers of the following 2 decades. Reynolds, who turned down the role, delivered a film that was the second highest grossing of that same year. Both of them, by any reasonable measure, made exactly the right decision for who they were. Detail 19. The cars were 1976 Trans Ams, not 1977. The film presents Bandit's car as a 1977 Pontiac Trans Am Special Edition. The vehicles actually used during production were modified 1976 Trans Ams. Pontiac provided 4 cars for the shoot. Not one of them survived. The high-speed runs on Georgia roads, the jumps, the off-road sequences, and the various crash requirements destroyed each car in turn. The crew kept the remaining vehicles operational by pulling parts from the wrecked ones until there was nothing left to salvage. The car that defines the film in popular memory is a combination of 4 separate vehicles, all of them destroyed in its making.
And a short time to get there. I'm eastbound, just watch old Bandit run.
Detail 18. Trans Am sales exploded after the film's release. Before Smokey and the Bandit, the Pontiac Trans Am was not particularly prominent in American popular culture. After the film opened, demand for the black and gold special edition configuration surged dramatically. The association between the car and the Bandit became so complete and so durable that it altered the Trans Am's commercial trajectory for years. Pontiac had provided the production vehicles with some promotional arrangement in mind, but the scale of what followed exceeded any reasonable expectation. The film did, accidentally, what no advertising campaign could have deliberately achieved.
Watch the car. There might be some vandals around who want to steal something. So you boys just stay here.
Detail 17. Jackie Gleason improvised nearly every line. Sheriff Buford T. Justice was not the character on the page that ended up on the screen. Jackie Gleason improvised the vast majority of his dialogue throughout the production. The insults, the extended complaints, the asides addressed to no one in particular, most of it was Gleason in the moment. Director Needham kept the cameras running during Gleason's performances and used whatever worked. Gleason had been doing extemporaneous comedy for 4 decades. The Honeymooners, The Jackie Gleason Show, his long Vegas career, and the freedom Needham gave him produced what most audiences remember as the film's defining performance. The specific quality Gleason brought was the ability to make frustration funny through escalation, each new indignity building on the last. The dignity he insisted on maintaining becoming funnier the more comprehensively the universe denied it to him. He played Justice as a man who genuinely believed he was the most reasonable person in every situation, and the comedy came from the gap between his self-assessment and reality. That gap got wider every time Bandit put more distance between them. Gleason was 59 years old when the film was shot. He had been famous since the early 1950s. That he brought this level of commitment and invention to a supporting role in a $4.3 million chase comedy says something about his professionalism and about the specific pleasure he took in the freedom Needham gave him. It is one of the great late career performances in American screen comedy, and it arrived without anyone planning for it to be.
Much obliged. Where's the can? I gotta take a swig.
Right back there. Just one.
Detail 16. Reynolds demanded scenes with Gleason be scrapped. Early in production, after the first intended scene in which Reynolds and Gleason appeared on screen together was shot, Reynolds demanded that the subsequent planned joint scenes be eliminated. Variety reported this at the time without a full explanation. In the finished film, Reynolds and Gleason almost never share the frame. The entire cat and mouse dynamic is built on near misses and Justice perpetually one step behind. This structure, which became one of the film's most effective comedic devices, was partly a result of that behind-the-scenes decision rather than the original script.
Oh, sweet. Oh, where might I find the Bandit?
I ain't seen him.
Over there behind us.
Detail 15. The original script had completely different character names. The screenplay that preceded the shooting version was substantially different in almost every character detail. Bandit's last name was LaRue. The character played by Sally Field was named Kate, not Carrie. Cletus Snow, the snowman, was listed as Bandit 2 rather than a named individual. Big Enos and Little Enos were named Kyle and Dickie. There was no junior character at all. Sheriff Justice's son was added during development, and the car was not specified as a Trans Am. The most iconic element of the film was a production decision, not a scripted one.
He and his shin. Come back.
How we been playing, Little Bridge? How we been doing?
Detail 14. Eastbound and Down almost didn't exist. Jerry Reed promised the filmmakers a song during production. By the time the shoot wrapped, the song had not been written. He had agreed to provide it, had been unable to produce it during filming, and found himself after the wrap with a commitment to fulfill. He wrote Eastbound and Down after the shoot was complete, essentially under the pressure of having already promised it. The song he wrote on that deadline became one of the most immediately recognizable pieces of American film music, played on country and classic radio for decades, inseparable from the image of the black Trans Am heading east on a Georgia highway. Reed's performance of the song over the film's opening sequence, the Trans Am pulling out onto the road while the credits roll, established a template for how a car chase movie could announce itself with music. It is one of the most confident opening sequences in 1970s American cinema, and the confidence came entirely from that song. The fact that it almost didn't exist at all is one of the better examples of deadline pressure producing something irreplaceable.
Honey, I gotta go. I gotta go back.
Detail 13. Jerry Reed was a serious Nashville musician. Reed wasn't playing a generic truck driver. He had been a respected Nashville session guitarist before the film, known for exceptional finger-picking technique, and a solo recording artist with a loyal following. He had worked with Elvis Presley as a session musician and songwriter. His casting as Snowman gave the film a specific authenticity in its Southern working-class register that a purely theatrical actor couldn't have provided. He had also appeared in Reynolds' previous film, Gator, 1976, and that prior working relationship translated directly into the easy chemistry between the two of them on screen.
Damn, he had a lot of friends, didn't he?
If they had a cremated this.
Detail 12. Mike Henry played Tarzan before he played Junior. The actor playing Junior, Sheriff Justice's suffering son, who endures a running series of physical indignities throughout the film, was Mike Henry. Before playing the hapless deputy, Henry had played Tarzan in 3 theatrical films in the late 1960s: Tarzan and the Valley of Gold, 1966, Tarzan and the Great River, 1967, and Tarzan and the Jungle Boy, 1968. The distance between those roles and the role of a soggy, car-sick Texas deputy is considerable. Henry's willingness to play Junior's misery straight without winking at the audience is part of what makes those sequences reliably funny.
Who's gonna hold your hat? Eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking.
Detail 11. Paul Williams was already writing hit songs. Paul Williams, playing Little Enos Burdett, was one of the most commercially successful songwriters in American popular music by 1977. He had written We've Only Just Begun and Rainy Days and Mondays for the Carpenters. He had written Evergreen for Barbra Streisand, which won the Academy Award for Best Original Song at the same 1977 ceremony that took place during Smokey and the Bandit's theatrical run. He would later write Rainbow Connection for the Muppet Movie, 1979. His appearance as the diminutive scheming Little Enos is one of those casting decisions that looks entirely different once you know what else the actor was doing at exactly the same time.
What about double or nothing?
You run up to Boston and bring back some clam chowder for me and my daddy?
Detail 10. Pat McCormick was a Tonight Show writer. Pat McCormick, who played the enormous Big Enos Burdett, was primarily a comedy writer rather than an actor. He had been a writer and occasional performer on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and had an extensive career in television comedy writing. The physical contrast between McCormick and Williams, McCormick stood 6 feet 5 inches and was built to scale. Williams was 5 feet 2 inches, was a visual joke built into every scene they appeared in together. The contrast is funny before either of them does anything, which is efficient casting applied as comedy.
You reckon you let me off at the next exit?
Hey, that's a Roger.
Boys, go get your daddy a beer.
Okay.
But I understand every...
Detail 9. The film was shot in 38 days. The entire production was completed in 38 days. For a film that would earn $127 million domestically and become the second highest grossing movie of its year, that timeline was extraordinarily compressed. The speed contributes directly to the energy on screen. There was no time to overwork scenes or second-guess moments that were working. What's there is largely what happened when the cameras were rolling, which is exactly the right approach for this particular film and its particular spirit. For comparison, Stanley Kubrick was shooting The Shining around the same period, a film of roughly similar length, and took over a year to complete principal photography. The two approaches represent opposite philosophies of filmmaking, and both produced films that have lasted. The 38-day philosophy produced a movie that felt alive in a way that extended schedules frequently don't, because the people making it had to commit to their instincts without the luxury of revision.
No, man. How we doing, son? Come on back.
Detail 8. The CB radio craze was already happening. Smokey and the Bandit did not invent the CB radio phenomenon. It arrived in the middle of one. Citizens band radios had surged through the mid-1970s, initially driven by the 55 miles per hour speed limit introduced during the 1973 oil crisis, which gave truckers a practical reason to communicate locations and law enforcement positions. By 1977, CB had crossed from a trucker's working tool into a broader popular fashion. The film both reflected the existing craze and amplified it considerably. The CB vocabulary throughout the film, Smokey for a trooper, Bear for any law enforcement, eastbound and down, became nationally understood shorthand in ways it hadn't been before.
No.
No.
When you tell somebody something.
Detail 7. Sally Field and Reynolds dated for 5 years. The chemistry between Field's Carrie and Reynolds' Bandit was not entirely a performance. The two began a romantic relationship during production that lasted approximately 5 years and continued through several subsequent films together. Field discussed the relationship honestly in her 2018 memoir, In Pieces, describing it with candor about both its appeal and its difficulties. The ease and warmth between them on screen, which is one of the film's genuine pleasures and one of the things that distinguishes it from pure stunt-driven entertainment, had a real foundation. Audiences responded to it without necessarily knowing why the dynamic felt more natural than most movie romance does. Field had just won her first Academy Award for Norma Ray, 1979, by the time the relationship ended, a trajectory that placed her in a very different professional position from where she had been when they met on the Smokey and the Bandit set in 1976. She had started as a television actress known for Gidget and the Flying Nun, and the Smokey and the Bandit period was part of her transition into serious film work. The film benefited from catching her at exactly that point.
Well, let's get going. Oh, whoa, hold a minute. What? Can I ask you a question? Sure. Sit right there, Fred.
Detail 6. Snowman's dog was a basset hound named Fred. Cletus Snowman. Snow travels throughout the film with a dog named Fred, a basset hound who rides in the cab of the 18-wheeler and maintains a quality of dignified, mournful indifference to everything happening around him. Basset hounds project a specific gravity that contrasts effectively with chaos, and Fred's presence gave Snowman a domestic warmth that balanced against the illegal nature of the enterprise. The dog was a character detail that worked better in practice than most scripted elements, and Fred became one of the film's more beloved supporting presences.
Never mind. Just keep the change. Sorry, what happened, Snowman?
Detail 5. The film was shot entirely in Georgia. Despite depicting a run from Texarkana, Texas to Atlanta, Georgia, not a frame of Smokey, and the Bandit was shot in Texas. The production used Georgia locations exclusively: Helen, Jonesboro, Atlanta, McDonough, and Cumming among them. The scenes representing Texarkana, including the loading of the 400 cases of Coors, were shot in Jonesboro, a suburb of Atlanta located roughly 1,500 miles from the actual Texarkana. The film's geography is entirely fictional, assembled from Georgia locations convenient to the Atlanta production base. Helen, Georgia, which appears in the film, is an Appalachian mountain town that had been redesigned in 1969 to look like a Bavarian alpine village, complete with German architecture and decor. It is one of the more genuinely unusual towns in the United States, and its appearance as a background location in a film about Southern truck driving gives a close observer a moment of real geographical disorientation. The rolling hills and highway stretches of Georgia stood incompetently for the flatter Texas and Arkansas landscapes the story required. Nobody in the audience was checking.
Hot damn, we're gonna make it.
Detail 4. Roger Ebert gave it 2 stars. Critical reception in 1977 was not favorable. Roger Ebert awarded the film 2 stars out of 4. Other reviews were similarly or more dismissive, characterizing it as thin, lowbrow, and unlikely to endure. These were reasonable assessments by critics applying serious criteria to a film that had no interest in satisfying those criteria. The audiences who made it the second highest grossing film of 1977 reached their own conclusions. The critics who called it disposable have been largely forgotten. The film has not been.
Damn it! Move them vehicles! We gotta get through there!
Detail 3. The ending was invented on set. The screenplay had an ending in which the Bandit faced genuine consequences, a more sobering conclusion that would have given the film a different overall character. During production, the cast and crew collectively decided this ending was wrong for what they had built, and invented a replacement on the spot. No script revisions, no studio consultation, no scheduled rewrites. They used instinct about what the film they had made required. The ending that reached theaters was the improvised one, and it matched the film precisely because it came from the same people in the same spirit as everything else. This kind of on-set collective decision-making, cast and crew overriding a scripted ending because it didn't fit what they had built, is relatively rare in studio filmmaking, where the script and the studio are the authorities and the production is expected to execute rather than reinvent. That it happened here and worked is part of what gives the film its specific personality. It was made by people who trusted their own judgment about what the movie needed, and that judgment was right.
Hello, officer. Glad you're here to assist me. My name is Sheriff Buford T. Justice. I have just...
Detail 2. Gleason turned the villain into the film's heart. Sheriff Buford T. Justice was the antagonist, the obstacle, the running joke, the source of comic frustration. He was not designed to be the film's most memorable element. What Gleason did with the role, through 4 decades of comedic experience and the freedom to improvise, transformed Justice into something more than a plot function. He became a fully inhabited character whose dignity is assaulted at every turn and who refuses to stop taking himself seriously despite all evidence that the universe has other plans. Audiences responded to him as though he were the film's actual star, which, in terms of what people walk away remembering, he largely was.
See? I didn't wreck it, Sheriff.
Detail 1. It was the second highest grossing film of 1977. Universal had assigned Smokey and the Bandit minimal confidence and minimal promotional resources. They cut its budget mid-production and positioned it well below their prestige pictures in terms of institutional investment. The film earned $127 million domestically, second in 1977 only to Star Wars, the highest-grossing film ever made at that point. Smokey and the Bandit outgrossed Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Annie Hall, Saturday Night Fever, and every other film released that year except one. The movie the studio had nearly stopped believing in became one of the defining popular entertainments of its decade. It also launched 2 sequels, Smokey and the Bandit 2 in 1980, which grossed $66 million, and Smokey and the Bandit Part 3 in 1983, which is generally agreed to be the least successful installment. Reynolds appeared in all 3, though his participation in the third was reduced. The franchise also produced a short-lived television series. The original film's success was what made all of this possible, and the original film's quality is what made the sequels feel like diminishing returns by comparison. A $4.3 million film shot in 38 days in Georgia created a commercial franchise that lasted 6 years and generated hundreds of millions of dollars. There is no formula for that. It either happens or it doesn't. If you caught any of these the first time around, hit the like button and subscribe. There are more deep dives like this one waiting.